Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajaka Ashtotter the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajaka Ashtotter the Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktabinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Now, is the text 2? 3. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 28th day of April 2025 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in Chapter 3, Karma Yoga, page 141, text number 3. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Lokesmin Vividhanishta Pura Prokta Mayanaga Jnana Yogena Sankyanam, Karma Yogena Yoginam. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Lokesmin Vibhadhanishta Pura Prokta Mayanagha Jnana Yogena Sankyanam Karma Yogena Yoginam. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Lokesmin Vibhadhanishta Pura Prokta Mayanagha Jnana Yogena Sankyanam Karma Yogena Yoginam. Go ahead. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Lokesmin Vibhadhanishta Pura Prokta Mayanagha Jnana Yogena Sankyanam Karma Yogena Yoginam. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Lokesmin Vibhadhanishta Pura Prokta Mayanagha Jnana Yogena Sankyanam Karma Yogena Yoginam. Go ahead. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Lokesmin Vibhadhanishta Pura Prokta Mayanagha Jnana Yogena Sankyanam Karma Yogena Yoginam. Not yet? Okay. Chad, you there? Guess not. Anyone else? Okay. Shri Bhagavan Vacha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, said, Loke, in the world, asmin, this, vibhadha, two kinds of, nishta, faith, pura, formerly, prokta, were said, maya, by me, anaga, O sinless one, jnana yogena, by the linking process of knowledge, sankyanam, of the empiric philosophers, karma yogena, by the linking process of devotion, yoginam, of the devotees. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O sinless Arjuna, I have already explained that there are two classes of men who try to realize the self. Some are inclined to understand it by empirical philosophical speculation, and others by devotional service. Purport. In the second chapter, verse 39, the Lord explained two kinds of procedures, namely Sankhya Yoga and Karma Yoga, or Buddhi Yoga. In this verse, the Lord explains the same more clearly. Sankhya Yoga, or the analytical study of the nature of spirit and matter, is the subject matter for persons who are inclined to speculate and understand things by experimental knowledge and philosophy. The other class of men work in Krishna consciousness, as it is explained in the 61st verse of the second chapter. The Lord has explained, also in the 39th verse, that by working by the principles of Buddhi Yoga, or Krishna consciousness, one can be relieved from the bonds of action. And furthermore, there is no flaw in the process. The same principle is more clearly explained in the 61st verse, that this Buddhi Yoga is to depend entirely on the Supreme, or more specifically on Krishna. And in this way, all the senses can be brought under control very easily. Therefore, both the yogas are interdependent, as religion and philosophy. Religion without philosophy is sentiment or sometimes fanaticism, while philosophy without religion is mental speculation. The ultimate goal is Krishna, because the philosophers who are also sincerely searching after the absolute truth come in the end to Krishna consciousness. This is also stated in the Bhagavad Gita. The whole process is to understand the real position of the self in relation to the super-self. The indirect process is philosophical speculation, by which gradually one may come to the point of Krishna consciousness. And the other process is directly connecting everything with Krishna in Krishna consciousness. Of these two, the path of Krishna consciousness is better because it does not depend on purifying the senses by a philosophical process. Krishna consciousness is itself the purifying process, and by the direct method of devotional service, it is simultaneously easy and sublime. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, Arjun said in the first two verses, Janardana, Krishna, why do you want me to engage in this ghastly warfare if you think that intelligence is better than fruit of work? Now, why would he think that? Because the previous verse, the last verse of the previous chapter, okay. Anyway, he was talking about buddhi yoga. Now, buddhi means intelligence. So, and then Prabhupada says that that's more or less a synonym for bhakti yoga. So the idea is that by speaking about buddhi yoga, it sounds like he's recommending meditation. Meditation, which is just really the working with the intelligence to control the mind in an internal kind of way. But this chapter is called Karma Yoga because Krishna consciousness involves both things. It's not just a meditation, it's not just trying to cultivate knowledge, but it's simultaneously cultivating the action and purifying the senses through activity by which one connects to Krishna, not only with the intelligence, but with the senses, with the words, with the mind, with everything. So it's both of those things. Now, this Sankhya literally means to count, and it's this analyzing. What am I? And literally the Sankhya Yoga, the Kapila Dev, the actual philosopher Kapila Dev, not the fake Kapila Dev. You analyze, what are you? And this is also there in Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada would say, okay, and he would do this with children especially, but also with adults. Says, okay, are you your hands? Are you your mind? Or you say my mind, my hand, my head. You don't say I mind, I head like that. Meaning that even in ordinary language, the implication is there that you, the soul, have a body, not that you're a body who happens to have a soul. The soul is the you. So this analysis, Sankhya literally means to count or analyze, is also important to a certain degree to understand the raw materials that we have to work with by which we can connect to Krishna. But the point is that in Krishna consciousness, once you come to the point of acting in devotion and understanding that you should try to do the things that we do in Krishna consciousness to connect to Krishna, everything else is taken care of automatically. It's not that you have to compartmentalize your sadhana. It says, okay, now I'm just going to contemplate. If you're working in karma yoga, in that you're intending the work that you're doing is intended to be an offering to Krishna, that's our karma yoga. But at the same time, your intelligence is involved because why am I doing it? Who am I doing it for? And by hearing, especially, you're remembering Krishna. But you can remember the Bhagavad Gita, you can remember the deities, you can remember all the holy name, you see? So all of your facilities are engaged. There's a place for everything. In other words, it's like, we have bodies, and it's not like just the head is important, and not just, everything is important. So similarly, all of these aspects of yoga, karma yoga, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, and of course, bhakti yoga encompasses the essence of all of them. And you get the benefits of all. Just like I like to read, we're going to eventually get to the 6th chapter, and the 6th chapter is all about dhyana yoga or Ashtanga yoga. And there's various technical aspects to that. But then when Krishna gets to describe the benefits of it, and one who is situated in samadhi and full meditation on Krishna, then he experiences transcendental happiness through transcendental senses. He's never shaken from the truth, and having attained that, he thinks there's no greater thing to attain. This is this is blissful life, even through dhyana yoga. But practically speaking, the dhyana for this age, the same result is gotten through regular chanting of the holy name and gradually connecting every one of our thoughts and activities and things to Krishna. You know, so it's practical in this age, whereas dhyana yoga really isn't. You know, because go to a secluded place and sit like this and do the pranayama. You know, and then no, you can't be in a yoga studio doing it. You know, you have to be off in the Himalayas somewhere. It's not going to happen. So Krishna's saying here, because Arjuna, you see in the previous text, I think I went through the slight, I think the editing. My intelligence is revealed by your apparently equivocal instructions. Did I go through that? Because the word eva is there. See that? Which really doesn't mean certainly in this case. It means apparently, or as if. And why do we know that? Because right in the purport, he says, although Krishna had no intention of confusing Arjuna of any juggling of words, because what it says now, my intelligence is bewildered by your equivocal instructions. Why are you giving me equivocal instructions? But Arjuna didn't say that. He says, my intelligence is bewildered by your eva equivocal instructions, by your apparently equivocal instructions. And that's what Prabhupada says in the purport. Had no intention of confusing by Arjuna could not follow the process of Krishna consciousness. Oh, no, previous sentence. A more organized outline of the path would be necessary for action understanding. Arjuna therefore wanted to clear up these apparently confusing matters so that any common man could accept them without misinterpretation. So they may be equivocal, seem equivocal to certain readers, because on one hand he's recommending the buddhi, is the main thing, and then the action, that seems to be. So, because Arjuna was thinking, well, that this seems to agree with what I want to do, because I want to engage my intelligence, I want to go and become a beggar and a yogi, rather than this seemingly self-defeating battle where I'm going to be killing my friends and my relatives, because he still hasn't got it, that the essence is he's doing it for Krishna's pleasure, not for his own. That's the idea. Okay. Any discussion on this? Okay. Going on. Text 4. Nakarmanam anarambhan naishkamyam purushoshnate natasanyasanaareva siddhim samadhigacchati. Not by merely abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from reaction, nor by renunciation alone can one attain perfection. Purport. The renounced order of life can be accepted when one has been purified by the discharge of the prescribed form of duties which are laid down just to purify the hearts of materialistic men. Without purification, one cannot attain success by abruptly adopting the fourth order of life, sannyas. According to the empirical philosophers, simply by adopting sannyas or retiring from fruitive activities, one at once becomes as good as Narayan. But Lord Krishna does not approve this principle. Without purification of heart, sannyas is simply a disturbance to the social order. On the other hand, if someone takes to the transcendental service of the Lord, even without discharging his prescribed duties, whatever he may be able to advance in the cause is accepted by the Lord, buddhi yoga. Svalpam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bayat. Even the slight performance of such a principle enables one to overcome great difficulties. So, you may recognize that line. That's from the verse I quote practically every other class. How does it start? In this activity, there's no loss or diminution. Karma, neha bikrimanashosti. Neha bikrimanashosti pratyabhayo nibhiti. Thank you. Svapam apasya dharmasya trayate. In this activity, Krishna consciousness, there's no loss or diminution. Whatever you're able to do in this lifetime is your eternal benefit. And even a little advancement protects you from the greatest danger, the most fearful type of danger. Hopefully we can get that one fixed. Probably, whenever he quoted that verse, which is a lot, he would always talk about, the great danger of losing the human form of life. Anyway, we won't get into that again. So this word Naishkarmyam, this word comes up in the Bhagavatam. Naishkarmyam bhavavarjitam nashobhate jnanam alang niranjanam. In the fifth chapter of the first canto, Vedavyas is encouraging, excuse me, and Narada Muni is encouraging Vedavyas to write the Srimad Bhagavatam. And one of the verses he says is Naishkarmya. What is Naishkarmya? Naishkarmya is activity that produces no reaction. Yeah, this is what we want. But that's a negative side. In other words, well, what does it produce? Activity that's for Krishna produces no reaction. Or it produces no bad reaction. There's no karmic reaction for that. There is rather a purification of the heart, which brings you closer to the goal, which is pure love for Krishna. When all your activities are in that mood, and that all your activities are that side, then there's certainly no reaction to it, you see, good or bad. We don't want good reaction. Good reaction, quote, good reaction means you have to come back in order to get the wonderful, result. Oh, I did so much good karma, I'll go to heaven. No, because you're still in the material world, and you have to fall down again. Dharma Setu Prabhu, he told me this. I never knew this. In the 9th chapter, I think it is, Krishna, he has this conclusive opinion of the idea of going to the heavenly planets. Trividya mam samapaputapapa. Some worship me indirectly, according to the 3 Vedas, the different Vedas that are for karma conduct. You've heard that phrase, that describe different sacrifices to different devas in order to go to different higher planets. So there's a whole bunch of the Vedas that do that. So he says, Trividya mam somapaputapapa. Some worship me indirectly by this means, and they drink the soma juice, somapa putapapa, and this way they become purified to a degree. Trividya mam somapaput yagya isvar swargatim pratayanti. Haribol. Christian. Was it Christian or just Chris? Okay. Yeah, you can sit here, or you can sit on a chair, or it might be most comfortable on that bench for you. Just grab a book. All right, you can sit down and be my guest. Chris was here for the morning class. He's an old timer. Right? See, that's the problem. The most comfortable position is pointing your legs at me, but you're not supposed to do that. So, yeah, you can stand on there you go. You okay? Huh? Oh, you remember. That's right. You're there. Oh, you were online. Okay, so let's go. So he says, this is in the 9th chapter. Try vidyamam somapaputapatva yagya isvar swargatim pratayante. Te punyamasada sudendra lokam ashnani divyanti videvi bhoga. So, following these karmakanda section of the Vedas, some worship me indirectly, aiming to go to the heavenly planets. Yagya Ishva Svargatim. Their goal is Swar. Swar is heaven. Is heaven in general. Pradya. Te punyam asa sadya surendra lokam. And those who succeed, they become very pious and they go to Indraloka, say. And then he describes the next verse. Tetam bhukva svargalokam vishalam chine punye martya lokam vishanti. Evam sahi dhammam anupapanna gadagatam kama kama labante. So in those 2 verses, he should destroy our desire to go to heaven, because it doesn't really help. He says, okay, for a while they may enjoy like anything up there. You can imagine having a body that doesn't really ever get sick. I mean, you don't stay permanently, but when you leave, it's finished. Vishalam. Vishala means very large. There was once a devotee Prabhupada gave the name Vishal too. He was pretty substantial. famous devotee. Chine punye, when your pious credits are used up, chine punye martya lokam vishanti. You come down again to this ninth earth planet? No, he doesn't call it that. It's the martya loka. This is the world of death. You see? Isn't Sanskrit a far language? Martya, mortuary, mortal. See the relation between the English word and the Sanskrit? So, but then, okay, well that sounds pretty bad. You have to fall down again and start all over again. But what about, that's where Dharma told me this, I was just amazed. He said, when you leave, you fall out of heaven because your time is up, like your punya is finished, right? On the way down, I'm going to have to confirm this, but this is what he told me, he's seen it. Your body, you're attacked by these rakshasas and man-eaters, and you're devoured. Your body is, in other words, that's the result of going to heaven. This is on the way down. But you can't die because your soul is. But you come down in the rain, and then you fall into a field of grain, and you get into the grain. The grain is eaten by eventually a man, and it's, and this is how you get back into a womb. Does it sound like fun? If you knew that was going to happen, would you do it? It's a way of convincing us it's silly. And Krishna said, and then the final verdict that Krishna has, Evam tahi dhammam anu gatagatam kama kama. You're going and you're coming. You're not making any progress toward back to Godhead. You're just wasting a whole bunch of time. All those years up in these heavenly planets. You're not going, it doesn't. So therefore we don't want to do it. Okay. So a Naishkarmya does not result. Naishkarmya is activity that has no material result. The only activity that actually that you can be assured is Krishna conscious activity. Whatever you do that's sincerely done just for Krishna with no material motivation doesn't produce any karmic reaction. That's called Naishkarmya. You see. So, but that's not achieved just by not doing anything. Non-performance of prescribed duties doesn't give you Naishkarmya. And simply giving up all activity or, sannyas alone doesn't produce a siddhi, one doesn't attain that. There has to be that central motive of bhakti. Bhakti has to be there. Okay, going on to text 5. Nahi kaschit chanamapi jatu tishtat yakarma krit. Oh wait, nahi kaschit chanamapi jatu tishtat yakarma krit. Karyate yavashak karma sarvak prakati jayagunai. Everyone is forced to act helplessly according to the qualities he has acquired from the modes of material nature. Therefore, no one can refrain from doing something, not even for a moment. Purport: it is not a question of embodied life, but it is the nature of the soul to be always active. Without the presence of the spirit soul, the material body cannot move. The body is only a dead vehicle to be worked by the spirit soul, which is always active and cannot stop even for a moment. As such, the spirit soul has to be engaged in the good work of Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, it will be engaged in occupations dictated by the illusory energy. Excuse me. In contact with material energy, the spirit soul acquires material modes. And to purify the soul from such affinities, it is necessary to engage in the prescribed duties enjoined in the Shastras. But if the soul is engaged in his natural function of Krishna consciousness, whatever he is able to do is good for him. The Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.17 affirms this. I'll chant it myself. Chakva swadharmam chadanam bhajang hare bhajanna pakvo tapate tato yadi yatra kava bhadrama buddha mushtakim kovarta apto bhajatam swadharmataha. If someone takes to Krishna consciousness, even though he may not follow the prescribed duties in the Shastras or execute the devotional service properly, and even though he may fall down from the standard, there is no loss or evil for him. This is an expansion on that verse, the Karma Namanayadamba. No. Not Nehabi Karmanashas. But if he carries out all the injunctions for purification in the Shastras, what does it avail him if he is not Krishna conscious? Close quote. So the purificatory process is necessary for reaching this point of Krishna consciousness. Therefore, sannyas, or any purificatory process, is to help reach the ultimate goal of becoming Krishna conscious, without which everything is considered a failure. So this is interesting because unless you have this commentary that Prabhupada is giving, it's hard to come to this conclusion just by reading these 3 verses. But Prabhupada is, he's giving it with his deep knowledge and his experience and taking us to the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the ultimate, conclusion of all of this. So this verse, Prabhupada would quote this one all the time. Chakva swadharman charanambajang haner. If one gives up his swadharma, in other words, the varnashram dharma, which is just, okay, I'm a kshatriya, everything I have to do, then if I just do my kshatriya duties nicely, I'll be successful. That was what Nanda was arguing to Krishna before the Indra Jagya. This is part of our dharma. We've been doing this all the time. We have to do this or the rains come and everything. And Krishna was arguing from karma mimamsa, which is saying, no, just work. Indra has to do it. He has to give the result. You don't need to worship him. Better we worship Govardhan. You convince him. So that's what they did. They gave up their swadharma, as worshipping Indra, and they're worshipping Hari, at this lotus feet of Hari. But your bhajan is a pakva. Now, pakva means to cook. That's why you got the swapacha, cooking the dogs. And if you're going to cook them, you're probably going to eat them. So the swapachas are the dog eaters. None of us are dog eaters. I always thought that cow eaters would be worse than dog eaters, isn't it? Anyway, we're neither eating dogs or cows. But the word is pacha, which becomes pakva. In other words, your bhajan is not cooked. It's not complete. That's what the bhajana pakva means. And you fall away from Krishna consciousness. So you join, but then I fell away. I couldn't do it. Where is there any abhadra, abhuda mushikim, for such a person? What's the downside? There's no downside. It's all plus. Okay, you only did 15%, then you blooped. So that's good. That's in your bank account. Next time it comes up, 16%. So where is there any loss? But then, ko varta apto abhajatam swadharmata. Those who very carefully follow the dharmas and the artas and the varnashram dharma. But there's no bhajan, abhajatam. Where is there any arta? Where is there any value of that? You haven't gained anything. So that we read that. So the idea is that Krishna consciousness is the best dharma of all, and there's never any loss, and there's never any diminution. And if you actually complete the course, you go back to Godhead, and you actually achieve the goal of life. So that's the whole idea here. You have to do something. I remember memorizing the verse the first year I joined. Somehow or other, this is 5. Nahi kaschit chanamapi jatatischati. You're always doing something, even if you're sitting completely still. The mind is still active, and you're breathing. If you're not breathing, that's the end of you. So you have to do something. So the question is, what to do for your ultimate benefit? What is the character of your activity? You see, and it involves not just your hands and everything, but it involves your intelligence and your mind, and that's also your activity. You can be sitting there completely silent, but the mind is active, and you're thinking of Krishna. You're chanting the holy name in your mind, whatever it is you're thinking of. Then that's the best kind of activity. You're still active. The mind is active. You see. So you have to do something. So what to do for your best result? And that's karma yoga, bhakti yoga. Karmendriyani sanyamya yaaste manasasmadam indriyartan vimudhatma mityachara sa uchyate. One who restrains the senses of action, but whose mind dwells on sense objects, certainly deludes himself and is called a pretender. Purport: there are many pretenders who refuse to work in Krishna consciousness, but make a show of meditation while actually dwelling within the mind upon sense enjoyment. Such pretenders may also speak on dry philosophy in order to bluff sophisticated followers. But according to this verse, these are the greatest cheaters. For sense enjoyment, one can act in any capacity of the social order. But if one follows the rules and regulations of his particular status, he can make gradual progress in purifying his existence. But he who makes a show of being a yogi while actually searching for the object of sense gratification must be called the greatest cheater, even though he sometimes speaks from philosophy. His knowledge has no value because the effects of such a sinful man's knowledge are taken away by the illusory energy of the Lord. Such a pretender's mind is always impure, and therefore his show of yogic meditation has no value whatsoever. And we saw during the 60s, when there was probably the largest influx of different yogis and teachers coming, because they saw there was an interest in the West and they could make profit. So the temptation, now suddenly you have so many followers practicing yoga, and this and that. And money's coming in. And you also have students who they consider themselves your disciples. So for so many of them, the temptation was just too great. And they fell away, they had sex with their secretary, yogi secretary. Yeah, it happened. And but Prabhupada never had any of that. Why? Because he's completely enjoying, at the highest degree, being Krishna conscious, spreading Krishna consciousness, seeing the people coming to Krishna consciousness is completely fulfilling. We have this verse that comes up. I don't know if I think we may have already gotten to it and one quote of it. But this famous verse from Yamunacharya. Prabhupada quotes it at least once, I think it's twice in the book. And wonderful stories. Many of you heard this before, but maybe you didn't hear it. So Yamunacharya was a very advanced student coming up. He was very brilliant, and he was a part of an ashram. He was being trained in Krishna consciousness. So he was a very good debater. And the king, I'm not sure exactly where he was, South India, I think, had a court pundit who was a very skilled debater, And there was a standing challenge. Anyone could come and try to defeat the court pundit, and if you could, then you get a prize, So no one can do it. So the young Yamunacharya, say he was like 18, maybe a little younger, 16, 17. He was known for his rhetorical skills and everything. So he came and he challenged. Now it was almost like, are you kidding? We've had big long-haired elderly pundits come in and, Sanskrit scholars, and they couldn't beat him. But he said, no, I want to challenge. So the king, in his magnanimity, said, okay, if you can defeat my pundit, you can have half the kingdom. You see? So I'm going to research this and find out the questions that he asked, because they were all like trick questions. And the pundit was stymied, and he was defeated. So he was defeated, and so he gets half the kingdom. Suddenly, an 18-year-old kid with half a kingdom. So he wasn't gross about it, but he started enjoying the kingdom. So fast forward, 10 years or something. And one of his old friends from the ashram drops by, Says, oh, Prabhu, nice to see you again, So he invites Yamunacharya to take a walk. He had all these gardens and everything, So, okay, let's take a walk. So he's out taking a walk, and then his friend starts reminding him of some of the wonderful shlokas that they used to learn, And before long, Yamunacharya is into the shloka loka, and he's just keeps walking. He walks right out of the kingdom, gives it all up. And then he wrote the Stotra Ratna. I'm not sure if this is part of the Stotra. That's his most famous book. Prabhupada would quote one or two from there all the time. But this one is his remembrance. He's remembering of his days as a king, So he says, this one I don't think I'm going to muff. Yadavadi mamacheta Krishna pada vinde navanavana sadhaman yundatam rantum asid tadavadi badanadi sangame smaryamane bhavati mukhavikadu sishtunishti vanancha. So Prabhupada would quote this verse. So ever since, Yadavadi means ever since, my mind, mamacheta Krishna pada vinde, has been fixed on the lotus feet of Krishna through bhakti. Krishna Nava Dasa Dhaman Yudham, and enjoying the ever fresh rasa, or the taste of serving his lotus feet. In other words, a variety of it, meditating on, Nava Dasa Dhaman Yudhitam Rantum Asi. Since then, Tadabadi Bhatanari Sangame Smayam, when my mind may happen to remember some of my liaisons with, his harem, basically. My lips twisted in disgust, and I spite upon it. Prabhupada said, I spite upon it, spit on it. So in other words, he literally wasn't attracted anymore. In fact, repulsed by it. So that's mature sannyas. It's not just an artificial, gritting your teeth or whatever. But really, the higher taste is constantly there, and it's not even an issue anymore. Another good example, a little less maybe dramatic, is the 6 Goswamis. And there's a wonderful song by Srinivasacharya. I highly recommend our song book. We still have a few piled up in the closet there. You can refer to there and get one of your own, maybe. And this song is in there. So my favorite one is the 4th verse, describing three of the 6 Goswamis. And Raghunath Das, especially, and Rupa and Sanatan. They were both all very, very wealthy. And they renounced the wealth. They ran away from it. So it says, Chakva Turna Mashesha Mandala Patishening Sada Tutchavat Budva Dina Ganeshako Karunaya Kopina Kantashrito. Gopi Bhavada Samatab the Lahadi Kallola Magno Mahur Vande Rupa Sanatano Daguya Goshi Jiva Gopala. I offer my humble obeisance unto the 6 Goswamis, namely Srila Rupa Goswami, Sri Sanatan Goswami, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, Sri Gopabhata Goswami, Sri Raghunath Gopabhata Goswami, and Sri Jiva Goswami. And then he says, who gave up, and especially he's talking about those 3, Raghunath, Sanatan, and Rupa in this case. Tyaktva Turnam, they immediately, as soon as they were inspired by Lord Chaitanya, they immediately gave up this vast wealth and influence. Ashesha means endless. Mandalapati Shrenim means influence and wealth and all of these things, aristocracy. But they gave it up very quickly without hesitating. Ashesha Mandalapati Shrenim Sadat Turchavad, as completely insignificant. And what did they do? Budva Dina Ganeshako. Karunaya Kopina Kandashito. Out of mercy upon the fallen souls. Dina means the mass of people who don't know about Krishna consciousness. They took on, rejected clothes, some used clothes. They would get and wash them up carefully and then put them around, loincloths and everything. Very austere. And describes elsewhere how they would live under a different tree in Vrindavan, very austerely, eating practically nothing. So how could they do that? Prabhupada tells the story of World War II. Was it World War II? No, I think it was Gandhi's campaign for independence. And there was this wealthy lawyer, I think, who joined Gandhi movement. And to really be a serious member of it, you had to become very austere like him, So he was making so much money per month, Prabhupada said. And he put on, Gandhi's clothes, and he was becoming an ascetic, Prabhupada said he couldn't live. He couldn't take it because he'd come from so much wealth and everything. Suddenly he's very austere. Not getting the higher taste of Krishna consciousness. That's the key. And he committed suicide. So it's not just becoming austere all of a sudden. You have to have that rasa, that nectar of Krishna consciousness. Then it's easy to tolerate at every moment. That's what the 3rd line says. They gave all this up, but what were they experiencing in their mind? Gopi bhavara samratabla lahali kalola magnomoho. Again and again they were diving and drinking the ocean of the nectar of the gopis' love for Krishna in separation. That is the highest, and at every moment they're doing it. So what do they need all this other stuff for? And it's not that they, it doesn't even describe that they would think about it again and then reject it, like Yamunacharya. But they never even thought about it. It was just natural, They didn't want to waste any time. They hardly slept, and kind of writing all these books, And swimming in the ocean of bhakti rasa. So we don't want to be pretenders. It's not just restraining the senses, but rather using the senses of action and then mind and intelligence, connecting to Krishna, and then you become satisfied. Okay, I don't have my, okay, 803. Okay, text 7. If there's any question or comment, just let me know. Yastvindriyani manasa niyam yada bhaterjuna karmendriya karma yogam asakta sabhishishyate. Okay, so this is much better, vishishyate, than the previous pretender who's just, restraining his senses, but his mind is still thinking of things that he can enjoy. On the other hand, if a sincere person tries to control the active senses by the mind and begins karma yoga in Krishna consciousness without attachment, he is by far superior. Purport. Instead of becoming a pseudo-transcendentalist for the sake of wanton living and sense enjoyment, it is far better to remain in one's own business and execute the purpose of life, which is to get free from material bondage and enter into the kingdom of God. The prime svartikati, or goal of self-interest, is to reach Vishnu. The whole institution of Varna and Ashram is designed to help us reach this goal of life. A householder can also reach this destination by regulated service in Krishna consciousness. For self-realization, one can live a controlled life as prescribed in the Shastras and continue carrying out his business without attachment, and in that way make progress. A sincere person who follows this method is far better situated than the false pretender who adopts show-bottle spiritualism to cheat the innocent public. A sincere sweeper in the street is far better than the charlatan meditator who meditates only for the sake of making a living. So Prabhupada is speaking from experience here. And in his household life, he encountered many of them. And as growing up as a child, professional sannyasis who would put on the cloth in the morning, and go out and beg, and then I'd take it off and then go home. Okay, let's see. Niyatam kuta karma tvam karma jayo yakarmanaha sariri yatra pichate na prasidhye yakarmanaha. Perform your prescribed duty, for doing so is better than not working. One cannot even maintain one's physical body without work. Purport. There are many pseudo-meditators who misrepresent themselves as being great professional men of high parentage and who falsely pose that they have sacrificed everything for the sake of advancement in spiritual life. Lord Krishna did not want Arjuna to become a pretender. Rather, the Lord desired that Arjuna perform his prescribed duties as set forth for Kshatriyas. Arjuna was a householder and a military general, and therefore it was better for him to remain as such and perform his religious duties as prescribed for the householder Kshatriya. Such activities gradually cleanse the heart of a mundane man and free him from material contamination. So-called renunciation for the purpose of maintenance is never approved by the Lord, nor by any religious scripture. After all, one has to maintain one's body and soul together by some work. Work should not be given up capriciously without purification of materialistic propensities. Anyone who is in the material world is certainly possessed of the impure propensity for lording it over material nature, or, in other words, for sense gratification. Such polluted propensities have to be cleared. Without doing so, through prescribed duties, one should never attempt to become a so-called transcendentalist, renouncing work and living at the cost of others. So, Prabhupada is speaking from experience here in setting up the Krishna consciousness movement, and that he had many, and there's still, actually the majority of members are householders now. In the early days, there was mostly ashram. To join the Hare Krishnas meant you had to join the temple and the ashram. Basically, there wasn't much of a congregation at all. But gradually over the years, actually in the Los Angeles temple, as that developed, because they had the facility, they had a lot of buildings they were able to acquire. And if you go up to Watseka, you'll see. And you had a whole household, community there. You could be part of the community and have a little apartment and so forth, And that's, Lord Chaitanya's followers were mostly householders, especially in the early days. When he was in Navadvip, he himself was a householder. So that's not precluded, but there are rules and regulations within householder life if you're going to live a devotee life, And Srila Prabhupada set that up. And the main thing is a positive. Just like we've been through this before, the 6 elements of surrender. Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya bharjanam rakshishyatiti vishvaso gopta dvevananantata atmanikshipta karpani shadvidha shadanagati. So the first 2 is doing things favorable for Krishna, anukulyasya sankalpa, and pratikulyasya bharjanam, giving up things which are against the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness, accepting the do's and the don'ts. It's like Maharaj, if you're here last night, the do nots, So the first thing is not to do nots. It's actually the do's. Anukulyasya sankalpa. Because if you really are able to get into what to do for Krishna, and there's always something to do. Chant Hare Krishna. That's a do. You're doing a Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. And then the do nots become feasible. If you try to start with the do nots, then it's very difficult. That's the yoga system. Yama and niyama. Yama means controlling, not doing. And then niyama, But in Krishna consciousness, no, don't worry about it. You could have just got out of jail or whatever, and you can come to the temple and chant Hare Krishna. Just, we have to keep an eye on a person like that. But the point is he or she is now in the temple, the kirtan's going on, you're benefiting. Even if you're not chanting, what to speak if you start chanting, So that's the great benefit, because in this age, it's very difficult. Obviously the Ashtanga Yoga, it's not possible this age. For very few, But I'll tell you, then you're successful. During the Kumbh Mela, of which there was one recently, a huge one, Bhakta David was there. I was worried about him. He actually emailed me from there. I don't know, from his phone or something. From the Kumbh Mela in what is it? Prayag. So, you're there, and then I didn't hear from him, but I read this article. There were so many people, and it's all this, to bathe at that very moment, that's auspicious, and you get liberation. So just try to visualize this. There's two rivers meet there, the Ganges and the Yamuna, basically, and there's a third one that's not visible. It's Saraswati, but no one says Saraswati, but that's the name of it. Saraswati. So at a certain auspicious time, and it's always January, and it's northern India, and it's cold. If you bathe, then you get liberation. That's the whole idea. So there's so many people, they slept overnight just, on the bank, Then all the other people rushed forward, trampled over those people, and there were many casualties. And I didn't hear from David. I said, maybe he was one of them. Nobody showed up at the temple. Is that right? But, that's auspicious to go there. Probably he went there several times with the devotees, but not to bathe in the confluence at the time. They went to chant Hare Krishna and distribute prasadam to the masses. So that's Krishna consciousness.
6 elements of surrender.
Yeah, anukulyasya sankalpa. So the first thing is to accept things that are favorable for Krishna consciousness. Get up early in the morning, chant Hare Krishna like that. And give up things that are unfavorable. 4 regular principles, okay, basically. Illicit sex, gambling, intoxication, meat eating. So that's those 2 are the first elements of surrender. And there's so many more things that are favorable and so many things that are unfavorable. So that is then the next pair is Rakshishititi Vishvaso Gopta Dvevadanantata. To be confident of Krishna's protection and his maintenance. He promises in the 8th chapter, this famous verse, Ananya Chetak Sadatam Yo Mang Smadati Nityasha Tasyaham Sulabhakpa Nitya Yuktasya Yoginaha. No, that's not the verse I'm looking for. It ends Yoga Kshemam Vahamyaham. That for those who are always thinking of me, how does it start? Ananyas chintayantamam. Yejana payapasate teshim nitya vyaktarnam yogakshema bhahamyam. Thank you. Ananyas means not with any other thought but Krishna. Ananyas chintayantam. Yejana payatesham nitya will always link to me with their minds and everything. Yogakshema bhahamyam. I personally carry their yoga and the kshema. Now, yoga has many meanings. Here it means the things that you need to link up with to survive. In other words, the necessities of life. That's one thing. But you need another thing also, security. You may have everything what you need, but a big army is coming. You need to be secure, and you need to have the necessities of life. So Krishna says, I will personally bring them for you. Don't worry. Just you link to me in devotional service, and don't forget me. So that's the faith of that's part of the surrender. In other words, let me just discharge my duties in Krishna consciousness. And the wonderful thing about the movement was that you join the temple and then suddenly things are taken care of. You have food, wonderful, prasadam, you have a little bunk bed, or something, you have a place to sleep. And you have your new friends and you have, everything you need. So he's carrying it. And so then the last two, and protection and maintenance. And Atmanikshepta Karpanye means to always be meek and humble and to have no separate interest beside Krishna. This is complete surrender. So that's what we strive for. But it begins with those first two. And then we can, I can accept this. Yeah, I'm going to accept it. Oh my God. Okay, we have to quit. So just remember one thing. Since pleasure is a dream, Krishna is supreme, the aim is prem, and the way is the name. Thank you. Oh, there's a one-liner I can give you can memorize. I beg to be blessed by the best of the blissful boys of Vrindavan Dham. Haribol.